So, okay, how can I assist you, Brian?
So I've been looking at this thing for quite a while, and we actually had a phone conversation. I don't know if you remember. I don't know, 6 months ago probably, at like 8 o'clock at night, and it was in a response to a message, a text message of some sort that you saw. I was
Okay.
responded back to, and we actually did a phone call, and we're in the process of moving at the time, so like okay, figure that out.
I
Took a
vaguely
little slump.
remember that.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. So Um, we took a little slump in business. Now it's kind of picked back up a little bit, weirdly enough, in the winter. Um, but I'm used to summer, right? Being busier in the summer. Um, but I've been talking about it for quite a while. I would imagine a year and a half or so. Makes you wonder, hey, why haven't you done that yet? So I have some questions. I have watched a lot of the videos over time. I got to two of the videos because by the time I realized that I saw emails or watched these other videos, which I saw those before, but the third one I didn't get to. But I don't remember that one exactly that well, but I'm sure that was when he already kind of joined and going and things like that. Um, so, okay. Um, I have some questions I wrote down here actually about 5 minutes ago after watching some of these videos because I knew I wouldn't remember.
I love it when people come into these Zooms prepared with questions because there's 30 years of stuff in this head, and some people think that they're coming into this thing to get a sales pitch from me. And if you watch enough of my videos, you know that I never try to sell my stuff. And so, that's the best strategy is to come into this thing, prepared with questions because I know the answer to every question and I can solve any type of problem.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so this is in the workshop, so to speak, but one of my questions is how do you read the estimate for some of the, obviously we're not just going to do windows and roofs, right? We're going to do anything we can to get the jobs and, of course, hire out
I
the
missed the
subs to
first
do.
part of that question.
Um, how do you estimate it? Is
Oh,
that in the
estimate
workshop?
it. Okay, estimate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I guess I'm going to give you the straightforward answer and then I'm going to ask a light bulb question. So, the straightforward answer is in the workshop, I teach you how to bid on federal government construction contracts that you have no idea what it is or what it does. As an example, in that section of the workshop, I start with one of my clients that called me up. He was having a hard time winning a federal contract. And the first question I always ask somebody when they tell me I haven't won a job yet is, how many have you bid? And the answer always comes back, well, I bid three, or I bid four, or I bid five. It's always some small number. Okay. A particular guy named Robert called me up with that same claim one time. And I said, well, dude, you should have bid like 150 jobs by now. Why have you only bid three? And he said, because I don't feel comfortable bidding something that I don't know what it is. I said, oh, great. That's a great answer. I know how to solve that problem. I said, you print out BidTracker report, I'll print out BidTracker report, and we're going to look at a job together. And the very first job on that list said replace two VFDs, 150 horsepower for pumps. And Robert said, what's a VFD? And so I made him Google it. And when you Google VFD, it overwhelmingly says variable frequency drive. So then I said, Robert, does that sound like a roofing product? Does that sound like an HVAC product? Or does it sound like an electrical product? He,
Electrical.
he said, it sounds electrical. I said, if only there were companies in local areas that you could call to buy electrical products. What are those things called? And he says, supply house? Oh, yeah, electrical supply. Well, let's just call an electrical supply house. So I cold called Conferenced it in, just hit a local electrical supply house. I think that was somewhere down in Florida. I don't remember specifically where. Uh, but I said, hey, listen, can I get the street price on 225 horsepower VFDs? And he came back and said 6,000. Great. Okay, thank you. Got off the phone with him. So, Robert, that's 2 times 6,000, that's 12,000. Now, listen, if you Google image search a VFD of that size, they're about 6 foot tall, maybe 16 inches wide a piece. Okay, so if you had to imagine 2 guys in there pulling these things off, putting them back in, how long would it take somebody to do that? Okay, suppose the guy was $100 an hour, how much would that be? And we just walked through the process. But at the end of the day, if you watched that video with Michael where I talk about Federal Acquisition Regulation 13.004, what is your risk for turning in a bid?
You don't have a risk. You can accept, deny, stall.
That's right, 0 risk. So what the hell difference does it make going through that exercise or not going through that exercise to turning in your bid?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
So,
Even if you're wrong.
that's right. You could. That's right. Or withdraw. That's right.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, and I can understand like where he got hung up because he got in. Sounds like a little bit of intimidation, not knowing what he was looking at, going, "Well, let's just go past this." And maybe looking at some stuff that he really.
Yeah. Let me tell you a secret. Half the shit I ever looked at in my entire career, I was looking at the plans and specs, going, "What the hell is that?"
Sure, I'm with you. And I guess it can be intimidating until you conquer it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, but I'm guessing in the workshop, I could see ideas, just little stuff from the videos that you show, like how you would do this or how would you do that, or getting really into the real problems.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you watch enough of my videos, you know that. Look, I always start with answering a person directly. Now, look, if there's something, every once in a while, somebody asks me a question that's I really consider to be proprietary, and I just go, look, I'll answer any other question you have, but that specific one is in the workshop, and I consider it proprietary, and I'm just not going to put that out there for free.
Right. I don't blame you at all. It doesn't make sense to have a workshop if you're going to give all of it away.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is kind of funny. He said, selfish, I think is the word he used. It's contractors. I think every contractor is kind of that way. In a way of competing in money. But I stem my question off of this. I know there's 25,000 federal contractors. How many contractors are in this program, I guess you would say?
So I've taught this to about 150 people over the last 15 years. So you can do the division on that, should be pretty easy. But let's talk about the 25,000 because I don't talk a lot about this publicly. Um, in the old days, we as federal contractors, we registered with something called CCR. It was called Central Contractors Registry or something like that. And it was public information. And in fact, in those days, you could actually download the list of every single contractor that was registered to do work with the federal government. In those days, it was around 750,000. It's my understanding that today it's around 1.2 million, but I haven't looked at the list in a long time. But somebody brought it up to me a year ago, and it probably made sense. So you and I are going to play a little trick question game. First question is, anybody at any time, anywhere, any place can bid any federal contract they want to.
Yes. Well, yes and no, I'd say to that. Only because it's really hard to do it outside of the BidTracker and probably would give up.
Well, listen, you're not going to find selling cake mix to the Navy so they can make cakes on ships in BidTracker. That's not a construction job. So anybody, that's a trick question, but you're going to tell me true or false. Anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place can bid any federal contract they want to.
It's a trick question. I want to say no, but I feel like it's yes. But I don't.
Okay, you're right. You want to say no, okay?
Yeah.
But it turns out that the answer is yes. Anybody, anywhere, anytime can bid on any federal contract. You can bid on building the next space shuttle or the next fighter jet, okay? Now, the reason it's a trick question is because you can't be awarded a federal contract unless you're registered in SAM. You can bid it all you want.
Unless you're in the club, you're not getting it.
That's right. Unless you're in the club, you can't get a federal contract. Okay, now we're going to ask one more gotcha question. Anybody, anywhere, anytime can bid on any federal contract as long as they're SAM registered and be awarded a federal contract outside of their NAICS code.
Going against the grain here, just yes, maybe.
Turns out no. You can't. So, have you ever heard of a NAICS code?
No.
It's what divides the different products, goods, services, trades. The construction NAICS code starts with 236. I think it's 236200. Don't quote me on that. But the cake mix NAICS code might be 55142. Okay? There's a list of NAICS codes if you just Google it. Now, when you get a SAM registration through my organization, when my wife does it for you, she'll include the top 26 or 30 NAICS codes that are related to construction. So you'll have the NAICS codes. If you bid a cake mix contract, you can't be awarded it if you only have the construction NAICS code. You have to have the NAICS code for cake mix. But that's just a matter of modifying your SAM registration and adding that NAICS code. Now, in order to answer your question, I had to educate you a little bit on NAICS codes. Because I hinted in this conversation that there is a construction NAICS code.
Okay, that makes sense. Now that makes that just light bulb for me.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
There is 1.2 million registered federal contractors among all the NAICS codes. Of the NAICS codes related to construction, that number is 25,000. Now, if it was 25,000 10 years ago and it's 25,000 today, how is that? This is where it gets interesting. One of my clients called me up, smart guy, called me up Monday morning after going through the workshop. He says, Sean, I don't care if it's 25,000 registered federal contractors today or 14,000 or even 40,000. Tell me how many there are today. I said, great, no problem. I said, let me get with my team and I'll get back to you. So I get with my team. They come back to me 2 hours later. He says, Sean, today the number is 23,780. I said, great. And he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean, whoa, whoa, whoa? He said, there's an interesting number here. Great, tell me about it. He said, of the last 70,000 federal contracts, not dollars, 70,000 contracts, they were awarded to only 3,000 of the 23,780. And I burst out laughing. Why are you laughing? I said, that's the whole reason GCExperts exists. If you Google how to become a federal contractor, it overwhelmingly says you have to be SAM registered. So some companies figure out how to get SAM registered, but then they don't win any contracts. And a registration with the federal government has to be renewed every year. If you went through all the process of figuring out how to get registered and you didn't win any contracts, how likely are you to renew the next year? Oh shit, I tried that. It didn't work. I got registered. Nobody gave me a federal contract. Okay. So, of that 3,000 that are actually getting federal contracts, I've taught about 150 of them. Now, the reason that's not cumulative is because next year this guy drops out and another guy comes in. I've seen the number as high as 27,000. I've seen it as low as 22 or 23,000. But on average, it's 25,000 a year.
consistent. Essentially, is why.
Or they don't know how to look. You can do it. You can get off the phone with me and you can go to sam.gov and you can beat your head against the wall and figure out how to get registered to receive federal contracts.
I don't want to.
Well, but I'm saying you can't. You've got a 3,000 out of 25,000 chance of becoming one of the 3,000. I mean, you can beat your head against the wall and go figure this out. There was no GCExperts when we started in this business.
Yeah, and I do think that's, well, I would call it over time. If there was, there might be a lot more. Thank God there's not.
Yeah, there's not. So that should answer your question.
Okay. And I'd say not everybody. I saw this. I want to say it was Facebook a couple of years ago, year and a half. I've been playing with it ever since. But not everybody wants to take a chance. I guess that's what you're saying. What I want to say. But I say, 2019, I started my siding. Actually, I started the siding business. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So that's why I kind of look at this. I go, well, I didn't know much then either. I just figured it out. I just said, okay, I'm not dumb, so I can figure this out. And I did.
Sure.
And then, of course, we had 2020, we know COVID, and didn't work nowhere for 3 months. And I got tired of that. I was like, I don't want to sit here anymore. I do something. And I did. I found out that they were still working. It was subbing, which was very frustrating because they're making the money, right? They're making the money. We're not. And we're making money, but I'm spending more on my guys than I am. I mean, sometimes they make more than I did. A lot of times, actually. So that was very frustrating. So I bitched about that for a while. And then I started making some money, started selling my own job, but I don't sell a ton, right? I sell 1 or 2 a month, or I'll skip a month. It's because people, you're right, I watched, it's personal. That's one thing that stuck out to me, it's personal. So they don't want to pull the money out of their pocket. And who wants to borrow 17% interest to get their house done? I mean, you're never going to pay that back. But I can't tell them that, even though I know that it's, that's what it is. They just don't do the numbers for themselves to figure out how long it's going to take them to pay all that money back. But I thought, well, we're still doing work. I also put some you call it out of some of the videos. You said, don't do this and expect to win a federal contract in the first 2 weeks or the first 3 weeks, or don't quit your day job, but do this. Keep going. So I said, that makes sense. That's being real about it. Like, I'm not going to promise you're going to win something overnight. Everybody be doing this if they did. What a thing. But it just effort, I think, is what this takes. And along with those other guys, I've been frustrated. Like, man, I didn't win this job. I get disappointed. And now I'm kind of to the point where it's like, well, I hope I win it, right? But I'm not going to hold my breath. Let's see. I usually get a good feeling from people, but I've been wrong about that too. So, and so it's usually the people that doesn't jump on right away, or the people that go. That usually I sell to.
Look, I have a position on this issue, and the position is, number one, hope is not a strategy. It's just not. And number two is, most people in the construction business bid it to win it. Man, I got to get more work in order to keep my business afloat. Everybody wants more, and the only way to give them more is to grow the business. Okay?
Agreed.
In federal construction, we never bid it to win it. Never. We bid it in such a way that if we got the job, it'd make a lot of money. That's a completely different strategy.
I like that strategy. Not because it sounds good, not because it's better. It's because of the way I feel about it. Quality over quantity.
That's right. That's why, I don't know what your win rate or what a typical. In fact, I just had a Zoom call maybe 3 days ago with Delmar and Kelly, husband-wife team, And they've won 1 in 7 jobs that they've bid with the federal government since they joined my program. In the last 3 months, I think they said they did $375,000 worth of work at 50% margins.
So how long have they been? Just curious, not how long have they been in the program?
I think they said 3 months. I think they said they started in the summer.
How much did they?
$375,000 at 50% margins.
That's great. That's all. That's, I mean, that's a dream scenario to me. But hey,
And they were looking for strategies on how to improve on that, and I gave them some strategies, and I posted that video on YouTube. Okay.
Wow.
Now, they are not typical. Now, I mean, what do they say? Results not typical or some bullshit like that. Look, I've had people that tell me that their win rate, that they won the first job they ever bid. I've had people that tell me their win rate is 1 in 35. But you can expect that if you do what I'm telling you to do, that you'll get your first federal contract within the first 90 days of starting bidding. Okay?
Right. And not expected. And I'm a logical person. Don't. I mean, it'd be great to have a profit of $100,000, right? I'm not saying you can't do it, but I am a person that's like a realist, I guess you would be.
I am too. That's why you never see me trying to blow smoke up people's ass. Like,
Yeah.
I know what the deal is because I deal with it every day, you know?
Like, if you profited $10,000 and didn't lift a damn finger, I think it's, now, obviously we want to make more.
I'm sorry, could you hold just one moment? My
paint, same color. It's the same color. Satin flat. Satin flat. It's satin. It looks brighter. It just hits you more. She's arguing that it's not the same. And it's not my thing. It's the contractor himself. But it just reminds me of how hard it is to deal with these people.
Yeah. And it's way easier on the federal government side. I mean, just as an example, yesterday I posted a video on one of my clients that called in on an interesting situation he found himself in. So keep in mind that while I am the federal government construction guy, you know, like when you talk about siding, I know what siding is, but I couldn't necessarily point to different types of siding and tell you the different types. That's more of a you thing than a me thing. Okay? So apparently, the federal government put out a solicitation to replace panes of glass in a window, but it was made up of multiple panes. And it said replace 7 of the 12 panes or something. They had cracks in them. Okay? So he gets the contract, goes out there, and as soon as this guy starts disassembling the window, they figure out that it's a muntin. Maybe you're familiar with that term. But it's like that faux wood across the one pane of glass. So it was actually cracked in multiple places, one pane of glass, but they had this wood trim that made it look like panes of glass.
Okay.
Okay?
It makes sense to me how you described it.
Yes. And he's saying he was going to try and get a change order for a differing site condition. And I said, no, that is not a differing site condition. I wish you would have called me before you tried to go after the government on this. What you have here is a latent ambiguity. Now, I teach patent and latent ambiguities in the workshop in great detail, but you can actually go watch that YouTube or listen to that YouTube video and tell him how. But then after I got off the phone with him, I actually sent him the direction I want him to take and the letter I want him to send to the contracting officer so he can get properly compensated for this latent ambiguity. Look, the contracting officer isn't going to take that personally. They're going to go, oh, okay, we made a mistake. And now we need to pay the contractor because he's entitled to the mistake to compensation for the mistake that we made.
Sure.
That's a big difference than out in your world.
Yes. Yes. I like to say that we do it, and I tell the customers, if you pull something off, right, we don't know what's behind it. It's anything that you do.
That's right.
And so it's not on the estimate because it would be poor practice of me to even.
That's right. The way that works in federal contracts is that we have a reasonable, we're entitled to a reasonable interpretation of the contract documents. Okay? So you made a reasonable interpretation or an expectation as to what was behind that wall. And then when you tore the wall down and you found that it was different from your reasonable expectation, okay, you would go show that to an owner. But on federal contracts, we're entitled to what's called a differing site condition, which is why he went to that doctrine in the federal acquisition regulations rather than the latent ambiguity, just because of inexperience, really. Uh, and you know, everybody on that's in my program has instant access to me all the time, and that's why I say in that phone call, dude, fuck, man, I wish you would have called me before you did anything, because I would have guided you directly exactly how to do this. Now look, we're going to try and save it, and this is how we're going to do it. But anyway, but yeah, you have two types of differing site conditions. One is it's not what you told me. You told me it was X. When I went out there, it was Y. And then the type 2 differing site condition is it's not what I expected. And that begs the question, why didn't you expect it? And then like I said, in the workshop, I teach that in great detail. But yeah, you won't have problems with that in federal.
Would it be almost an umbrella? Is what I would say.
It is, because look, everybody in your business just worries to hell when the inspector comes by. Oh, he's going to throw the book at me. In federal government construction, we use the book against them.
Okay, which is great, because who knows, regular person that would know where to how, not even a chance of figuring that out.
That's why you have an expert like me on your team.
That's great, because yeah, you just be trying to make it up as you go, and it probably wouldn't work out for you. They'd have upper hand for sure. I call it an addendum. I don't know that.
Amendment.
Amendment. Okay, got it. Oh, okay. How does the government pay? First part of the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to answer to it, so to speak, but not. Do they do 50% up front? Do they have to cover the cost, or do we have to cover the cost? If not,
okay, I'm going to cover that whole thing for you.
Okay.
First of all, the funny answer: how does the government pay? Great. No, they pay in accordance with what's called the Federal Prompt Payment Act. And you can Google that, but the part you would be looking for is where it says the contractor shall be paid monthly or more often as deemed necessary by the contracting officer on a percentage complete basis. So how does a federal contractor get paid? On a percentage complete basis. If you're 50% complete with the job, they give you 50% of the contract funds. Okay? Goes on to say that subcontractors shall be paid within 7 days of the prime contractor's receipt of payment. So when does your sub get paid? 7 days after you get paid. So we go out and we tell our subcontractors, go get some shit done so we can get a pay application in and we'll get you paid within 7 days. Now, sometimes subcontractors want some money up front. By the way, there is a provision for a federal contractor to get some money up front. Remember in that video I made that guy Google Federal Acquisition Regulation 13.004?
Yes.
Do you want me to make you Google something, or you just want to take my word for it?
I'll take your word. I believe you. I don't.
Okay. Federal Acquisition Regulation 52 24 52.242-12. Okay? It's 242 or 252-12. Anyway, one of those. It says in there that you can get the government, the federal government, to give you an advance. Now, I'll tell you, I have never done that ever, not one time in my entire career, because there's some provisions to it. And the primary position, I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there's one in there I do remember for sure, and it's that you have to share your books with the federal government. And I'm just never going to let the government see my books.
Yeah, I don't like that idea either.
Okay, now, subcontractors, they're going to ask you for money up front for two reasons. Number one, maybe they really don't have the money. And number two, they're worried about how easy it's going to be to get money out of you, just like you worry about getting that money out of Cruella de Vil, right? So I address those when I'm talking to my potential subcontractors. I say, look, you're only going to ask that question for two reasons. You want, $5,000 down. And I'll tell you, it's not that in my entire career I didn't give some money to start something just to get it going the way I wanted it to go. I have done that. But most of the time, the subcontractors, 95 to 98% of the time in my entire career, the subcontractors just got the subcontract, went out there. It says in their contract, paid when paid. They did it. We put a billing in and we paid them. Okay? Now, let's start with number one. He doesn't have the money. Well, listen, that's fine. I'll just open up an account at the local supplier, and then if our agreement's 30,000 and I spend 8,000 at the supplier, I'm going to deduct the 8,000. You'll get a check for 22,000 when you're done. No problem. Number two, he's worried about getting money out of you. Listen, you're protected two ways on that. Number one is you're protected under the Federal Prompt Payment Act, which says that you'll receive money within 7 days of my receipt of payment. And you can go Google that, read it for yourself. And nobody wants to get in trouble with the Department of Justice over not paying a subcontractor. Number two, you're protected under my bond. Most federal contracts are bonded, and you call my bonding company. It's public information. I can give you the copy of the bond. If I get hit by a bus on the way to work tomorrow, the bonding company will step in and they'll pay you. So look, you're not going to have to worry about getting paid on this job. Just go out there, get the stuff started, and we'll get some pay applications in. We'll get everybody paid.
So basically, they supply their own material, whatever it takes to do it, and we essentially pay them when we get paid as it goes, right? Or pay them at the end.
Most of my entire career was exactly that.
Okay, cool. That gives me, because sometimes people, how much are you going to give me to start this job?
Well, I just answered that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with you'll get paid when we get the time we're going to approach it. Make it simple. Okay. Okay. Bonds. So we just talked about that. It's the next thing on my thing. Bonds and credit score.
Don't tell me the exact number, but is your credit score above or below 580? I need to. I'm sorry, 680.
What would you say? Probably below now. We used to have some great credit.
Okay, so I've got a path forward both directions. I just needed to know where to start. So if your credit score is 680 or above, it's real easy. We can get you bonding over the telephone within 24 to 48 hours. The second methodology, if you remember in that video with Michael, I talk about the 5 types of payment and performance protection. By the way, most people just say bonds, but what they actually mean is payment and performance protection. Bonds is one of them. The second type is irrevocable letter of credit, but the third type is the type that I would recommend for you. It's called tripartite escrow agreements. Okay, everybody qualifies for them, and the only difference in the whole system really is that the federal government will pay the bank, and then the bank will pay your subcontractors and give you the profit.
Okay.
So it's essentially the government saying we don't trust you with subcontractors' money.
Okay.
And then after you do some contracts like that, you build your credit back up. You just go back to traditional bonding, and Bob's your uncle.
So I'm sure the federal government has a bank, quote unquote. What bank is it? Just curious.
I think it actually says Department of Treasury on there.
Okay, cool. See. Fair enough. All right. So the Department of Treasury would pay the subcontractor, and the rest would go to.
No, they'd pay the third-party bank, the tripartite escrow agreement bank. I forget which bank that is, but it's somewhere out in California.
The federal government pays the sorry if I can't say that correctly,
tripartite escrow agreements bank. Okay.
That would be what the third thing that you talked about getting for the bonds, let's just say. They'll pay them, then they'll pay the sub.
Who I am, here's where we're at, and here's our phone number, email address, bank account numbers if you guys want to pay us, and that kind of stuff. It's a registration. No license required, just a registration. It's a SAM registration. It stands for System for Award Management. Okay, we're going to play a game. And I'm going to give you the answer to the question before I ask you the question. Are you ready for the answer?
Yes.
The answer is SAM registration. Ready to play?
Yeah.
There's one thing and one thing only required to be a federal contractor, and that is a
SAM registration.
So if you sell cake mix to the Navy so they can make cakes on ships, what do you need?
SAM registration.
If you sell bullets or aircraft parts or even construction goods services, what do you need?
SAM registration.
Okay, now we're going to play the other part of the game. Holly, if you and I walked through the neighborhood and I pointed to the top of a power pole and said, that's a transformer, would you recognize that as transformer? It's that big gray cylinder thing at the top of a power pole?
Can you hear her?
No. Just tell me if she heard me.
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. Scenario number 1, the transformer shall be replaced by a licensed electrician in the state of Texas. Now look, that has nothing to do with the company that got the job. All they needed was a SAM registration, but the actual work has to be performed, so you'd have to get that guy. Okay? Scenario number 2, the transformer shall be replaced by a licensed electrician. Now, any licensed electrician from any state can come into Texas and replace that transformer. There's no such thing as a state inspector going on to a federal job. It's federal eminent domain property. You just have to comply. Again, has nothing to do with the name of your company or who got the job. All they need was a SAM registration. Scenario number 3, the transformer shall be replaced. That literally means that you and I can go out there on a Saturday and replace the transformer. Okay? That's how I can tell you. I have done $1 billion worth of work with the federal government. I have never had a license of any kind other than a driver's license.
So essentially, you're just following their stipulations.
You're complying with the contract requirements.
So we're SAM registered. We're just making sure they want a licensed contractor. We'll find a licensed contractor.
That's right. That's exactly it.
That's simple. And do they ask for that? Imagine they would just sit.
Well, sure. In California, you have to use licensed roofers on federal contracts because they have earthquakes in California and they can get away with requiring that. But there is no such thing as a licensed roofer in Texas, right? So you don't have that requirement here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no licensing here.
That's right.
But in California, I think Florida too.
Look, all I'm saying is whatever the requirements are, you gotta
just follow them.
You just gotta follow the requirement.
Lost my train. Think of it in a second. So how do you start the class first, right? Actually, you start the class
and do the SAM registration at the same time because it's going to take you a week to get through the workshop. It's going to take 10 days to get your SAM registered. Then we meet up on the other side. Start going after contracts.
And I know I'm touching back to it. Some of the stuff is in the workshop, but also if you've got questions about how to estimate something or not really sure, just call me.
You get my personal cell phone number as part of the deal. I answer my phone about 18 hours a day.
Well, I'm going to try not to call you at night.
But I'm just telling you, I've got guys this guy Mark called me up maybe 4 weeks ago on a Thursday night at like 9:30, and I go, "Hey Mark, what's going on? How can I help you?" And he says, "I was just testing to see if this shit works."
Well, I believe you because we talked at like 8:30. So I believe it. I think we talked for like an hour.
Look, I mean, do I look like I'm bored in this conversation? I'm just telling you, this is the most fun I have is helping people. It's been the greatest joy of my life.
You have to love what you do, or else you're gonna hate it, right? You're not gonna stick with it forever if you don't.
I love it, and I particularly love it when you get. Look, when you start, everything is how do I? Hey Sean, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I? But eventually the questions turn to strategy, like that conversation yesterday. Hey, I attempted to go after him for the differing site condition, and then he realized that he had mentioned something about a latent ambiguity, but he didn't do it in the right way, and he realized he didn't. When we're talking strategy, that's really cool when people graduate from how do I to strategy. That's where I really come alive.
Okay. What would you say? It's all about effort, right? This stuff is you got to pour into it what you get out. I believe that.
Yeah.
What would you say? I know there was another, less time making money, right? But I also think, like in the beginning, you have to put the time in to get.
Well, I always say, look, the first advertisement you saw, I can tell you what the headline is because I wrote it. Actionable strategies for contractors to earn $1,000 to $100,000 an hour for their time. And I fucking mean that. Okay? You should be making $1,000 an hour on federal contracts that you work on as a minimum.
Great. I mean, it's a whole lot better because I spent a lot of time doing estimating. I mean, we literally.
Well, look, we all estimate for free. I can tell you this. If my win rate over time was 1 in 20 contracts that I bid, how many jobs did I bid if I did 1,000 federal contracts? 20,000. Okay? And I know that I'm never going to be able, I have a cost of procuring a federal contract because I don't win every job that I bid. So how do I get that to approach zero? That's where BidTracker comes in. BidTracker is designed so that you are going through the process of procuring work in less than 5 minutes a day to find the work.
So I'll send the video where you go in, you click, it downloads. It goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
Quick as you can click, it downloads to a folder. I'm sure that's all going to be explained in the workshop.
In great detail.
But you get to a point where you get faster, I'm sure, at.
That's exactly right. The goal is less than 5 minutes a day.
How many would you say in 5 minutes? Once you get good at it, rough numbers.
I'm sure the guy that told me this morning that he's got 20 new jobs to look at, it took him less than 5 minutes.
That's great. That's great. And still be able to do what we're doing now. Because I believe, there's one thing that sticks out to me. You said, do not quit your day job.
Yeah, stick with your day job until you can transfer over. Absolutely.
Yeah. Was perfect. Damn it, I can't remember. Oh, I saw something on email. It said your 5-year retirement plan.
Yes.
What is that?
I haven't read that email in probably 8 years. I don't remember what it says. If you have a specific question about something you read in that, let me know. I know exactly which email you're talking about. It's been a long time since I've read that.
You're not going anywhere for 5 years is my question.
No.
I don't imagine.
No.
Okay. Because my mind was swirling like, well, how would we get BidTracker? How would this work? How would I
Oh, I do have, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I do have plans for making sure this whole thing keeps moving forward.
Okay, cool. And in 5 years, I probably wouldn't retire because I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, so I guess now, she knows this. Probably drive her crazy with it. I know I do. But I've already made my mind up we're going to do it. So that's not because I've been kicking this around for forever. So. The training, baby, is it's pause and play. It's like Netflix. So you pause it, you play it, you stop it. We can.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yep. Or you can pause it, just like in real life. When people raise their hand and ask a question, you can pause it, pick up the phone, and call me.
Yeah, if we have a question, so we don't understand it.
That's right. Yep.
What else? That's simple. I'm sure we're going to get about. We won't be able to do it in 3 days, I know, but get through it. It takes 2 weeks to get those damn registration anyway. Plus, I know we'll have questions. Okay, so I guess at this point, you said invoice, or how does it work?
Oh, there should have been a link sent to your text message that says, "Hey, great talking to you. If you want to invest, you want to check your phone."
Yes, that's a good question. She asked, do you have to annually renew the SAM registration?
Everybody
Yes.
has to annually renew their SAM registration. If you want us to do it, I think it's about $300 or $400 or something. If you want to do it yourself, you can.
Yeah, you have to do it every year. That was part of the conversation we were having because people probably were trying to get new contracts, but didn't renew their SAM registration.
That's right. That's why the number always changes.
Makes sense. But any questions? He said like 90 days, if everything right, you should be able to land something.
Not even everything right. Don't hold yourself to such a high standard. We're all going to make mistakes. Do what I tell you to do.
Okay. If we have questions, we need to reach out.
I always tell people it's your problem until you call me. Then it's my problem, not your problem.
Fair enough. And because to be successful in it, I believe there's a lot of questions. Because there's nobody's perfect in it,
That's right.
If you don't ask, you're not going to get an answer.
That's right. You're exactly right.
So we want to be successful in it. I almost said that, hey, doing this government contracting could be really good, and then building this company up, right? To then, but you got to make it profitable first. So
Don't look. Let's take one step at a time. Okay.
sure.
I've had people. God, you wouldn't believe some of the things I hear people say in these things, and I just say, that's future Brian's problem. Let's focus on building the damn thing. Let's one step at a time.
Agreed. 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 Um, I get well. You probably can notice I get excited, and which is a good thing. It can also be a bad thing.
Well, the way I like to explain it is that look, if you were a flooring contractor and you started with no tools, okay, except basic hand tools, can you imagine flooring somebody's house thinking, man, if I had a tile saw, boy, if I had that $600 tile saw, I could. You can imagine what you would do with that tile saw, right?
Right.
And what I'm telling you is maybe for the first time in your life, you're about to go through some training that you can't anticipate today what you would do with that training. You can't anticipate it until you actually had the training because you ain't never seen anything like this before.
Just the snippets of what I've seen, in the videos, just like showing, a couple 50 seconds, whatever it is. I get like I lock into it, right? And it's almost that, oh man, I wonder what else he was going to say behind that. So it's like a hook line.
Well,
It's kind of cool.
I mean, God, I've been doing this a long time, and I mean, look, have you seen me take another? I mean, obviously, I had a refrigerator thing going on here today. Normally, you get my full attention, but have you seen me get on my phone, answer calls, reply to anything? I have time to help people. Okay, I positioned myself in life to where I can, and I enjoy this. So yeah, I would pay attention to what I'm saying.
So do y'all still, you and your dad, do y'all still do government contracting? I'm imagining so.
No, I haven't done a federal contract in years and years and years. My dad still dabbles in it from time to time. He's 75 years old now, and he gets his shits and giggles from that. So
But yeah, did we get it? We got it.
great.
So we'll just click on that. Um,
Yep.
And that's it. And then we do all the got the STEM registration working for us. We got the class going on, and then on the other end of that is when I guess we do another. Do we do another Zoom or?
We can do a Zoom, phone call, whatever. But the next step is join the membership program, start getting BidTracker, and I've got a 5 key step process to take you through on that.
Okay.
And then boom, you're out there bidding contracts.
Okay. But the two are the first ones, and then we come to the BidTracker once we do everything we're supposed to do.
That's right. I want you fully registered before we even talk about the membership program.
Okay. Okay. On this, I know probably I'm just trying to make sure. The spam registration, it pops up. You fill it out. Once we fill it out, it goes to you guys being a. I mean, that's it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. And then if there's not something that was right, I'm sure it won't let you go through all the way.
That's right. And then my wife will contact you, or you'll get an email or something asking something. You'll get in touch with her, and she'll get it straightened out, and boom, we'll do it again.
Sounds good. I'm excited, Sean, and excited to get started and see where this thing takes us.
All right.
I appreciate your time, and talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Nice to meet you, Holly.
If you can hear her, she said hi. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.